Hello, I'm Jean Carroll, and I'm standing in front of a mural of the swimming pool in Lincoln Park. I learned to swim here in 1935, and I started a fun life of a lot of recreation and swimming in this pool and the coming Coleman Pool. I grew up right around the gate of the school where I went to, and part of our reason for staying around the area, outside of staying close to my school for my grade school years, was also we were very attached to the Lincoln Park swimming pool. The pool became quite a part of my life, and for every day in the summer, no matter what, we went down, rain or shine. A lot of people will say they went every day, but we really did go every day. It was popular on some days, but my mother was kind of the, I guess you'd call her the babysitter. She wasn't paid for it, but she wouldn't let any of us, me or any other little girls, go down in the park by ourselves. So every day, she took about, there was 3 or 4 of the steady ones. We went down every day. This was during the Depression days, and one little girl had lost her mother, and another one didn't have a dad, and there was all these things going on in their lives. And so that was our life. I'll tell you what, one thing about it was in those years of the 30s, it was quite a polio scare. And so some people would not let their kids come down there because they were afraid of it, I guess. But our little group, my mother said no, she just thought it was clean salt water coming in and going out. And so we were a good little group, and we were a healthy bunch of little kids. We would come in at the north, where the gas station is, Fauntleroy Avenue there. We would cross over right there and walk in the park, and walk clear through the park, and there was a big, well, it was a well-known trail really that came down from that end, and we would go down there at that time, and it would open up right about where an old wooden bathhouse was. Hello, I'm Jean Carroll, and we're now at Coleman Pool. The grand opening day was July 4th, 1941, and another little girl and myself. I was Jean Crowther Carroll, and she was Marie Blythe, now Marie Blythe Tennyson. And so the summer before, we kind of got together and hooked up together and started a thing together called Tandem swimming. And we had our little act, and so we got together, and we were invited around to several of the beaches at different occasions. And so at this grand opening, we were invited to be at that. And Mr. Lou Evans was the director of the park department that time, and he called my mother on July 3rd, the day before, because we had watched it being built, and we knew we were going to be in the opening, and he told my mother to send Jean Marie and Ray down to the pool today, and they can practice their little thing before tomorrow's grand opening. So we came down, and it was the thrill of a lifetime, because we went through the front door over there and came out and saw this. Well, we had seen it because we'd been walking by it every day while they were building it, and we were the first 2 little girls that we dove in this brand new Olympic-sized pool, and were thrilled to death. So we practiced for an hour or something, just going back and forth in the pool. So then on the next day, the grand opening was, and so we were in that. And then, so we started coming down just as we both swam on the swim team, and this was where the old pool had been our home every day in the summer. This was every day. So we could come in and have the pool all to ourselves from about 10 o'clock to 12, and that's quite a thrill. It was nice warm water. The old pool was cold, but it opened up our Lincoln Beach for sure, because everyone they made fun of the old pool. Some people called it a mud hole. Our little group never did. We always called it the Lincoln Pool. It's just such a grand place. It was the best in Seattle, or the West Coast at that time. And so instead of being at the bottom of the heap of all the list of Seattle beaches, all of a sudden we were at the top, because it was and it still is. It's a grand old pool. They had big bleachers, and they were jam-packed, and they all people stood behind it was wire fencing in, and they were stacked up back there. So we had a good turnout. Well, because I think the Herald, for one, they ran different things during the year, and of course we talked about nothing else that whole year at school, from the September till the July was just when that pool was going to open. It was a cutoff point, and when they had that many come through, and like on the weekends, and the lineup would be up, clear up the street there, of kids waiting to come in. It was just packed. There was no swimming. You just stood, you know. You weren't going to, you couldn't even, we were kind of lap swimmers, but there was no such thing as going up the length of it, except when we were here in the mornings, and you couldn't even get across it because of so many people, but you just came to play in the water. There was 4 or 5 things we did. It didn't last over 8 minutes, I suppose, but we did a couple where we would do the backstroke together, and like she was there, and my toes would come under her chin, and so whenever her hand went back, then I followed her. So we were pretty good together. There was only the 2 of us at that time. We started out with 3, and then Arlene kind of backed out. So there was just the 2 of us. So it wasn't like there was a bunch of girls trying to keep right together. So, and we were good at that. I was just following her. So we'd do pretty much the length. And then we would stop and turn around, and then we would do the freestyle. But then and I was thinking that I don't know how, I can't remember if I never asked her later how we were hooked together, because she was out and her feet were back here, and somehow she was hooked here on me. But that might be our thing. And then we did another thing when one of us would do the backstroke, and I'm not sure if there, and then the one following her would do the freestyle, and it was just we were just tandem and absolutely synchronized. We were so well knew each other. We were like one. We did, both arms were right together all the time. And then we did a thing called a pinwheel, and that's where we would be out in treading water, and then the one, like Marie would stand, and then I would come behind her, hook my toes around her neck, and then I would do a back duck dive, come around hers, and then we would just start going around. And there was no splash to it. When we came up, we did all our paddling while we were underwater, and so when we come up, of course, we'd take the gulp of air, but there was no splashing, so it was rather a smooth. It looked kind of smooth. There was a lot going down underwater, but you didn't see it when we came up. So we could do quite a few times, and I can't tell you how many, but we could hear the audience, of course, and we'd do 1 or 2, and then pretty soon they'd start clapping because they'd think, oh, they're coming up again, they're coming up again. So it was kind of it was our showstopper, we called it. So but we got a lot of just, any kind of, there was a potlatch thing went on at Seward Park, and Green Lake had, and any time there was any kind of a water activity anywhere, we were, for about 2 or 3 years there, we were in every type of a program in Seattle that they had. So I'm sure we wouldn't hold a candle to what they're doing nowadays in synchronized swimming, but ours was very basic. But it was good for that era. Then in 1934, right in the middle of the Depression, my dad wasn't working, but my mother worked in a bakery at West Seattle. It was called Wings Bakery, Perry Wings Bakery at Admiral Way, and then later bakery at the Junction, the Vandekamps. But at any rate, so my dad was home taking care of me all the time. So in the summer days, there wasn't anything to do, and for some reason, one day we took a walk down to the park, and we got down to the beach part here and walked along, and we discovered the old pool. And so from then on, he started bringing me down to the pool every day. They had a man named Tom Sedgwick. I think every child in Seattle knew him because he went to all of the beaches and taught the swimming classes. And so he came to Lincoln Pool on whatever day it would be, once a week, and taught swimming classes, and I took to it. I just did. And so, and then my first little race I was ever in was 8 years old, and the meeting was out at, the swim meet was in Madrona Beach, and I was in the dead man's float, and you just floated in the water with your face down. It wasn't really swimming, but Yeah, that's what the little kids did the first time. And so my dad would have me practice home in the bathroom basin. He'd fill the basin with water, and I'd put my head in, and he'd count, and he'd say, now just, come up every time. And pretty soon I could stay there for a while. He was counting the numbers were getting up, and, he'd say, okay. I was in the water, but I'd shake my head yes. So anyhow, in June or August when the meet was, I came in second in the dead man's float, and that was my first little medal I got. Right in the late 30s, or from 35 to 38 or something like that, you'd get quite a few kids would come in, and on the weekends a lot of families would come, and very often they'd go swimming here, and then they'd walk back to where the stoves were back down here a ways, and they'd have their lunch or cook it over the stove, and then they'd come back to the pool for some more. So on the weekends it would be kind of crowded, but in the last couple of years the pool wouldn't hold the water anymore. So the guards would ordinarily they would let the pool water out on Sunday night. They'd open up so the water would just take a natural flow back out, and then when the tide would come in during the night sometime that night, by the time they got here Monday morning, it was all full again, and they'd lock it in. So from Monday, the water was rather cold, but by the end of the week it warmed up because it was in there for the whole week with the sun beating on it. So by the end of summer of 1940, it wasn't holding, and some days you'd come down and there'd just be a little puddle out in the middle. There was no water in it. And so then that's when my mother and another lady got a petition together, and 4 or 5 of us little girls, we went all around the area here from the Fountain area right up to about Morgan Street. We went, and on those signatures we had about 400. And so apparently we were going to, the idea was just to get 3,000 and something to fix it. And then apparently Mr. Coleman heard about it, and that's the rest of the story. It was going to be a $100,000 pool, and of course it ended up $150,000. This beautiful pool. And we were fortunate in a way, because if it had been another year we never would have got it, because it was finished in the summer of '41, and of course Pearl Harbor was December, and everything went to the war effort. So the pool probably wouldn't have been on the list of things to do. So, but yes, saying we want, the closer it got and we saw what it was going to be like, my goodness, we were down here every weekend and came down weekend nights and watched the building. But we watched it from the first dugout to the finished product. So it was quite an event. I'm sure some of us were more excited about it than others, but our area was just thrilled to death. Couldn't get enough of looking at it. We knew the name was well known in Seattle because there's the Coleman dock, and they have a lovely home, still do, down past the ferry dock there. But we didn't actually didn't know them outside of the name. I think we shook hands with them, or maybe not, and maybe said hello to them on the day of the opening when they. It was his sister, I think, which was the daughter of this man that's named after. They had I don't know how big of a container it was, of water from the Atlantic, and so the two waters would be mixed. And there's a picture of her leaning over doing that, and of course we were just sitting there watching that. So, and they all said hello to us, but we didn't. Outside of that, really. They're a well-known family, but on a rather quiet way. Very, very nice, I'm sure. Actually, Audrey was the daughter that's my age, but and she's actually in the same class I was. Did not know her, and I saw her that she was here that day. But our classes were 300 or 400 in our senior class, so there was a lot of kids, and she never came to, as far as I know, never came to, they had a pool in their yard, by the way, so they didn't need this one. So, but they were a very nice family. Did a lot for West Seattle, or for Seattle too, but this is nice. the swimming was the thing to do because obviously there's no money involved. All you have to do is have a bathing suit, and you didn't have to buy equipment. So that's what turned the kids out in those years to be swimmers. There was no outside of competing as we did in races. There's always competition in that. But as far as when you're in the water, you're all equal. Everything was who gets to the end, who gets across the pool the fastest. Just got to know so many kids from across the city that swam in all the different beaches. If you're running into them every year at the races, you get to be, actually you get, when you're waiting for the starter gun, you're not exactly their best friend, but once you get on the other end, you're all buddies again. I know people that maybe have had a bad experience, and they're scared. And I guess and I never had a bad experience. So that, we were always taught water safety. Boys do it more than girls because they always kind of want to show off sometimes. But sometimes, like out on the Sound, they'll jump in and they'll start swimming out. Well, you never do that. You swim parallel to your, you don't swim out because you got to get back. So, and of course the pool here, of course, the guards, and I was the guard one year, but we were always careful that we always jumped, well, I did too, dove off the sides, but we were sure that kids wouldn't, you wouldn't be thinking maybe, and I think everyone's not, I even did it once in this pool, wasn't even thinking, and I was at that end, and I just dove in. And I remember, that was dumb because I smacked my face. But, and you just, so anyone can do it, and I was very safety conscious, but I was talking to someone, and I guess I wanted to get over to the side, so I just dove in, and I thought, oh, you dummy. I never told anyone. But you didn't want the kids diving from off the deck. Over here was fine. But because it's water, and you see water, and you just think, well, it's water, and you aren't aware that bottom is going to hit you pretty soon. And no towels were ever allowed on the decks. A lot of kids snap towels and play with them and stuff like that. And they didn't want not too much fooling around. You were either here to go in the, because it was, you wanted to be careful around, and it was tile, so no running. We were always yelling at them, no running. The little boy in the blue suit, stop running. When we were here in the mornings, that's when we took any pictures we were going to take. Didn't take a lot, but every so often someone would have a camera. So it was Arlene and I, and we had the 3-meter board, I guess. And so we just went out. We were sitting on the end of it just to have our picture taken. And so one of the guards, he saw us up there, and we weren't doing anything wrong. We were just having our picture. So I don't know if he told us to wait there a minute or what. Anyhow, he went in your machine room back here somewhere, and he got a little saw out. So he came up behind us, and then we were sitting on the end, my pictures, and then he was back here like he's sawing us off, And so, but we didn't do that when the public was around. We were very serious, but they did kind of played around, just in good-natured fun. My husband was in the Air Force, so he did enough traveling, I guess, so he was fine when we got married. So we weren't travelers. I mean, if I never saw someplace over in Greece or someplace, I used to laugh, and I still do. I said, I'll buy a postcard. I don't have the desire to do it. I was just a local person that never went anywhere. But I had a marvelous childhood. We all did, actually. We've always, back to that generation, we did have some good times with, of course, when we built this was beautiful, but we had good times in the old pool. We had just as good as anyone had anywhere. Actually, it's the same good times as we had here, but this was much nicer. So and we knew we were going to have water every day when we came down in the pool. That made a difference. One thing I still watch, people say, how can you stand it? If there's a swim meet on television, I sit there all day, and I love to see people swim.
Gene, I have to ask you, when was the last time you were in the water of Coleman Pool?
Oh, of course. Oh, God, I can't tell you. I wish I could say last year. Probably 10 years. Oh, God. 10 years, maybe. Maybe more.
Are you ever tempted to go swim again?
Yes, like right now. Oh, isn't it nice? See if I can talk to him someday. I'm going to see if I can talk to someone who will know who's around. I would love to come back.